Hello Capricorn, and welcome to Somewhere in Between Video Department, your 2024 annual readings from Planet Waves. I'm Eric Francis, your astrologer, coming to you on a beautiful snowy day here in the Astrology Chalet in Rosendale, New York. I'm working out of my normal location to have a whole different vibe and feeling, and to try something new. This is my fourth video in the series. I'm working at about 1 in the afternoon on the 14th, 15th, 16th, I think it's Tuesday, the 16th of January 2024, a few days away from Pluto leaving your sign and entering Aquarius, with the exception of one last encore, which will be in Northern Hemisphere spring 2024. I'm sorry, Southern Hemisphere spring, Northern Hemisphere autumn, for a couple of months later in the year, when Pluto just grazes Capricorn, and gives you an opportunity for any final leftover business associated with this transit that's gone on since 2008. For the astrology studio reading, which you may or may not have, I did a review of the past 30 years of transits associated with Capricorn. We're going to move that reading onto the Somewhere in Between page so you have access to it, because I consider it to be essential and fundamental to be able to have a record of your transits and an understanding of just what it is you've been through. And I'll do some recapping here about that. But suffice it to say that Pluto transits are potent, and they leave a lasting mark. Pluto has a 248-year orbit. It does not go through many signs in the lifetime of one person, though in our particular lifetimes Pluto has been moving fairly quickly, because Pluto has been at what's called perihelion, the closest point to the Sun. That was, I guess, sometime maybe in the 80s. So Pluto's on the near side of its orbit, but now it's moving back out further away. It's got a very eccentric elliptical orbit. I don't know how much astronomy people know these days. People seem to be having difficulty with geography. But basically, just to put it simply, the pink dot is the Sun, and Pluto is the blue ellipse. And fairly recently, Pluto was at the nearest point, and now Pluto is kind of moving out to 1/4 of the way from its nearest point, which means that it's spending, if you can see that, spending more time in each sign because it's moving further from the Sun. Hence, it covers fewer degrees per year. This has a number of different effects on growth and development, but what it really means is that we're going to have 20 years of Pluto in Aquarius, and we've lived through about 16 years of Pluto in Capricorn, and that began in 2008, and the world responded immediately with a series of banking collapses and economic collapses, and AIG, a massive insurance company that insures everything under the sun, had to be bailed out lest the entire economy fail. We really don't know if this is really all true, that individual corporations control the entire economy, but since the day that Pluto entered Capricorn, we've heard about little other than banking and war, and the structures that hold up society have basically been imploded. They've been collapsed on their own footprint. For you, the effect is what I called in the written reading a fundamental reconstruction of self, a complete rebuilding and restructuring of who you are, a dismantling of your psychic structure from the inside out. This did not necessarily feel like a dismantling of your psychic structure. It just may have felt like a lot of very, very intense, nonstop changes. Though it was a Capricorn who described the process that he was going through as this kind of, just taking apart and putting back together who you are. And it is likely to come as a relief that Pluto has left your sign. It will take some pressure off. The one thing that an astrologer that I hold dear to my heart, Martha Lang Westcott, Treehouse Mountain, the author of a series called Tools of the Trade, and one of the early and still very few genuine asteroid masters, said in one class that Pluto transits are really intense, but we tend to miss them when they're gone. And we miss them when they're gone because they provided this dependable source of, in a sense, pressure. They provided a dependable source of impetus, not necessarily of inspiration, but of drive to keep going through the changes that you were going through. And the changes that you were going through matched the world, which was going through these massive upheavals. And there's not a lot of people who recognize that the changes that they're going through have anything at all in common with the changes that the world is going through. But sometimes we see it, like you may be going through something really profound in your life, and maybe flip on the TV and the news just seems really unbelievable, and you think, wow, I wonder how I would be perceiving this if I weren't going through this these changes that I'm going through now. But they are directly related, and the world will change as a result of Pluto leaving Capricorn and entering Aquarius. One has led the way to the next, and you are emerging from this, I think, as a fundamentally different person than you were in 2008. Though we might ask whether the process of Pluto was like sculpting a sculpture out of marble and gradually revealing the thing that was contained within it. I have other sculptors other than Michelangelo, I'm sure, have said this, but Michelangelo once said, well, he knows the finished result is in there, and he just has to remove everything that's in the way. If you've seen some of his sculptures, you think, well, it worked for him, and he got results, and Pluto does get results. And so you've been through one of the most challenging transits that a person can go through. And if you check out the Astrology Studio video, which is that's in the during the year version of the year ahead astrology. But I did this unusual thing where I looked back for the first half. I'm probably going to do the same thing with Aquarius. There have been there's been so much constant change over the past 30 years, it's difficult to even summarize it with, for example, peak years. 1993, if you're old enough, very, very important year. So, meantime, I think that continuing a very brief look back, and I'm not setting a time limit on these readings. They seem to be going about the length of my in-person consults, a bit over an hour. The peak year there were two major peaks of Pluto and Capricorn. One was, I would say, 2011 through 14, the 2012 era. 2011 was huge, a year of planetary changes and social upheaval. And then when Saturn caught up with Pluto